K9 German Shepherds found a forest ranger chained to a tree. What they did next will break your heart. During a cold training mission in the snowy wilds of Pineville Ridge, a group of highly trained K9 German Shepherds suddenly did something unexpected. Their handler got distracted for just a second, and in that moment, the dogs disappeared into the thick forest, led not by commands, but by something deeper, something pure and loyal. That's when they found him. A man, barely awake. His face was covered in dried blood, his body marked with bruises and heavy chains wrapped tight around his wrists, tying him to a frozen tree. His name was Elijah Hart, a forest ranger known for protecting others. But now here he was, abandoned in the cold, left to suffer in silence. But the dogs didn't panic. They didn't bark or freeze. Instead, they acted calmly, as if they knew exactly what to do. What happened next was nothing short of amazing. A quiet, powerful rescue that touched the hearts of even the toughest officers. This isn't just a story of survival. It's a real reminder of loyalty, instinct, and silent courage. Proof that sometimes those we train are the very ones who end up saving us. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video. It was a cold and snowy day in Pineville Ridge, a place known for its vast, quiet wilderness. A team of highly trained K9 German Shepherds was out on their routine training mission. These dogs were used to tough exercises, and they had gone through countless drills before. Their handler, Officer James, was experienced and always kept a close eye on his dogs, making sure they stayed focused. This particular day was no different at first. The team moved through the snow, running, searching, and responding to commands with precision. The trees around them stood tall, their branches heavy with snow, creating a peaceful, yet intense atmosphere. But something was off this time. The dogs, always so focused and obedient, began to act differently. For just a moment, Officer James looked away. He checked his equipment, adjusting his radio. And in that split second, something changed. The dogs, each one an expert in their field, didn't follow his orders. Instead, they turned and ran off into the thick woods. They weren't running aimlessly. They weren't chasing anything or following a scent they had been trained for. No, this was different. The dogs were guided by something deeper than their training. Instinct, loyalty, and perhaps something even more powerful. The wind howled through the trees, and snow swirled around them. But the dogs kept running, disappearing into the wilderness. Officer James stood frozen for a moment, confused and worried. He quickly called after them, but they were already too far ahead, their forms disappearing into the white landscape. He knew these dogs better than anyone, and yet, in that moment, he couldn't understand what was driving them. They were trained to follow his commands, but this time, they were following something else. Something inside them told them to go deeper into the forest. The dogs didn't stick to the usual path. Instead, they veered off into the thick, dark forest, where the snow-covered ground stretched on forever. The trees stood tall around them, their branches heavy with snow, casting shadows that seemed to make the forest feel even deeper. There was no clear mission here, no target to reach. But the dogs weren't following orders. They weren't even thinking about their training exercises anymore. Their instincts were guiding them, pulling them into the forest with a sense of urgency. It was as if something deep inside them knew that they had a job to do, even if they didn't fully understand it. The snow beneath their paws crunched loudly, but they moved through it without hesitation, their bodies working in perfect harmony. Each step seemed to bring them closer to something. They moved with a purpose, their eyes scanning the snowy landscape, noses sniffing the cold air. The further they went, the stronger the feeling became. They weren't just running through the forest. They were searching for something important, something or someone who needed help. It was as though the snow, the cold, and the dark trees weren't obstacles to them, but signs to follow. The dogs didn't need commands. They knew what needed to be done. Driven by something more than just training, they pushed forward, knowing they were headed towards something they couldn't yet see, but somehow understood was crucial. The forest, with all its silence and snow, seemed to hold a secret, and these dogs were determined to uncover it. Then, they saw him. There, hanging from a frozen tree branch, was a man barely alive. His name was Elijah Hart, a forest ranger known for his tireless work in protecting the wilderness. But now he was barely conscious. His face was covered in blood, his body bruised and battered, showing the signs of a terrible struggle. His wrists were shackled with heavy chains that dug painfully into his skin, making it almost impossible for him to move. The cold had left him weak, and he hung limply from the tree, his body shivering in the icy air. It was clear he had been left there, abandoned, with no hope of rescue, and no one around to help him. The dogs didn't react the way one might expect. They didn't bark loudly in panic, nor did they run around aimlessly. They weren't confused or scared. Instead, they stood still, taking in the scene before them, their sharp eyes locked onto the man, focusing on the chains, the blood, the danger. They were trained to act quickly, but this was different. This wasn't a training exercise, it was real, and it demanded a careful response. The canines, in their calm and controlled way, assessed the situation. They didn't rush in without thinking. Instead, they understood the urgency of the moment. They were determined to help, to do what they had been trained for, but more than that, they seemed driven by something deeper, something instinctive and powerful. These weren't just dogs. They were loyal, intelligent animals, fully aware that Elijah Hart needed help, and they knew without a doubt that it was up to them to save him. They stood in perfect silence for a moment, gathering their strength before they would act. What happened next was nothing short of extraordinary. The canines, guided only by their strong instincts and their deep bond with humans, sprang into action with calm efficiency. There was no hesitation, no confusion, just a deep, unwavering sense of purpose. The dogs moved with a quiet confidence, their focus solely on the task at hand. They had been trained to perform difficult tasks in all sorts of situations, but this was different. This wasn't just a training exercise. This was a real life-or-death situation. One of the dogs, a strong and skilled German shepherd, approached Elijah with careful steps. He sniffed the air, assessing the danger, before moving closer to the man. The dog's keen senses told him that the chains were the immediate threat, so he worked with steady paws to untangle the heavy chains that bound Elijah to the tree. He nuzzled and pawed at the metal links, using his teeth to try and loosen them. His actions were slow but precise, as if he fully understood the importance of the task. Meanwhile, the other dogs stood guard, their eyes scanning the forest, making sure no other threats were near. They remained alert, every sense sharpened as they kept a watchful eye on the surroundings. The dogs communicated silently, their movements synchronized, as though they had worked together countless times before. Their teamwork was flawless. There was no chaos. Despite the dangerous situation, the canines remained calm and collected. Every movement was thoughtful, measured, and driven by a deep, instinctive understanding that Elijah needed help. They knew that time was of the essence, and they were determined to free him from his chains and save him. The silence of the snow-covered forest was broken only by the soft rustling of the dogs' paws in the snow and their steady breathing. It was a quiet, focused rescue mission, a rescue driven by trust, loyalty, and an unbreakable bond between man and dog. The rescue was nothing short of a miracle. The canines worked in perfect unison, their actions so smooth and focused that even the most experienced officers watching from afar couldn't help but be moved. Each dog knew exactly what to do, and together, they displayed a level of teamwork that seemed almost magical. Their calmness in such a dire situation was truly remarkable. As one of the dogs finally managed to untangle the heavy chains from Elijah's wrists, it became clear just how exhausted he was. His body was weak from the brutal treatment, and the cold had drained the little energy he had left. But when the chains fell to the ground, Elijah, despite his condition, managed to raise his head and let out a quiet, almost breathless sigh of relief. His eyes, though dim with pain, showed a glimmer of hope. The dogs didn't stop there. They stood by him, ensuring he didn't collapse or fall back into unconsciousness. One dog stayed close, offering comfort with gentle nudges, while another seemed to guide him, nudging his leg as if saying, "You're safe now." They didn't bark loudly or make any unnecessary noise. They were there to protect him, and they did it with grace and precision. As Elijah was freed from the chains, it was clear how much he owed to these dogs. He was weak, his body bruised and battered, but he was alive. Without the dogs' loyalty, intelligence, and courage, he would have remained trapped in the cold wilderness, abandoned and alone. For those watching, it was a powerful reminder of the strength and bond between humans and their canine companions. These dogs weren't just following orders, they were driven by something far deeper: loyalty, instinct, and the pure desire to help. Their bravery saved a life, and their actions would be remembered as a shining example of the power of trust and teamwork. What happened on that snowy day wasn't just a rescue. It was something much deeper. It was a powerful reminder of the incredible trust, loyalty, and bond that can exist between humans and animals. The canines didn't just save Elijah. They proved something far greater. They showed that sometimes the ones we think we train, the ones we guide and command, are actually the ones who end up saving us in our most desperate times. As Elijah lay there, freed from the chains, it was clear that the dogs had done more than just carry out their mission. They had displayed an unspoken understanding of what needed to be done. They didn't panic or bark aimlessly, but instead, each dog acted with calm precision, guided only by their training and, more importantly, their loyalty. Their actions spoke volumes about the deep connection they shared with their handler and the people they protect. It wasn't just about their physical strength or their ability to carry out commands. It was about their hearts, their courage, their instinct, and the bond they had formed with their human partners. They didn't need words to know what to do. Their bond with humans had made them more than just trained animals. They had become true heroes in this moment. The rescue left everyone who witnessed it in awe. The officers, who had seen countless rescues before, couldn't help but be moved by the sight. The dogs had acted with such grace, intelligence, and determination that it felt like witnessing a miracle. And it wasn't just the humans who were amazed. Elijah, still weak, realized that his life had been saved by the very creatures he had once worked alongside. The moment was unforgettable. It was a reminder that sometimes the most extraordinary acts of courage come from the most unexpected places. It was a moment of pure emotion, a moment that showed the power of trust, loyalty, and the deep connection that can exist between humans and animals. The bond between these canines and their handler went beyond training. It was a bond built on love and mutual respect, and on that day, it saved a life. Elijah Hart was safe, but the bond between him and the dogs grew even stronger after the rescue. It wasn't just about him being their handler anymore. It was about something much deeper. The dogs had shown him that they weren't just following commands or performing tasks. They had proven their loyalty in the most incredible, life-saving way. Elijah felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude, but also something more. He felt like he was truly part of their pack now. The bond between a handler and his dogs is built on trust and respect, but after that day, it became something unbreakable. Each day after the rescue, Elijah's relationship with the dogs deepened. They weren't just a team working together anymore. They were family. The dogs would no longer just look to him for instructions. They would look to him as someone they trusted with their lives. Their actions that day, the way they moved with such purpose and calm, had proven that their connection was beyond simple training. They had worked together as if they had known Elijah all their lives. The bond they shared now was something special. The dogs didn't just see Elijah as their handler. They saw him as one of their own. And for Elijah, the feeling was mutual. He understood them better than ever before, and was in awe of their strength, intelligence, and the loyalty that ran so deep within them. They had saved his life, but now they were forever connected in a way words could never describe. The memories of that snowy day would always stay with Elijah, and he knew that the bond between him and the dogs would never fade. It was a bond built on love, trust, and a shared experience that changed them all forever. From that day on, their connection wasn't just about training or duty. It was about something far greater: instinct, courage, and love that could not be broken.